His appearance always exuded confidence and superiority. All his movements and body language, not only during matches, but also for the catch plasticity, incredible for a man with a height of 206 centimeters, millions of fans around the world fell in love with him, and for the slightly distant look of half-closed eyes, they called him Big Sleep. You are on the channel Chronicle of Hoops, and today we are going to look back at the career of Tracy McGrady, who was one of the most popular players in the league in 2000s, but couldn't overcome the curse of the first round. A tall and thin kid named Tracy McGrady was born in the city of Bartow, Florida. Raised by his mother and grandmother, played basketball all his childhood and planned a career as a pitcher. In his spare time, he sometimes threw a basketball, but didn't take it seriously till 1993, when he saw Orlando Bright rookie Penny Hardaway doing such things on the court that 14-year-old Tracy immediately realized that he wants to be when he grows up. Inspired by his new idol, he began to train hard, got into the team of high school in Auburndale, but in the third year due to bad marks he had to leave the team at first and then change schools. The young basketball player was noticed by coach Joe Hopkins, who insisted on transferring to Zion Christian Academy in North Carolina. McGrady had thrived in his new position and helped the academy team set a season record of 20 wins with just one loss. Tracy himself averaged 27.5 points, 8.7 rebounds, 7.7 assists and almost 3 steals per game. And when they finished second the McDonald's All-American, T-Mac was named NC State Player of the Year by USA Today. After graduating from academy, McGrady wanted to go to Kentucky College, but he was already spotted by Elvis Smith, an amateur athletic union coach at the Adidas agent. He invited him to a summer training camp, and after exhibition games at the Adidas ABCD Camp Summit, scouts of the National Basketball Association were interested in T-Mac. And since our hero dreamed of the NBA, he decided not to go to college, but immediately declared for the upcoming draft. Yes, then it was possible. Big Sleep got into the league in '97, and the height of the transition period, basketball had been no longer just a sport, but didn't transform into the multi-billion-dollar business it is today. T-Mac's generation are talented students who, bypassing college, relying on their talents and ambitions, wanted to provide it for themselves and their families as fast as they could. McGrady, Garnett, Bryant, Jermaine O'Neal, Darius Miles, they were all united by arrogance and kind of youthful enthusiasm, which for some became the key to success, while for others it was buried in the infantile, uncontrollable player. So, in 1997, 18-year-old Tracy went straight from school to the NBA draft. Several teams were interested in him, including the defending champions Chicago Bulls. They were ready to send the problem Scottie Pippen to the recently formed Vancouver Grizzlies for a high lottery pick, but Michael Jordan vetoed the exchange, threatening to leave the team. As a result, he was chosen by the Toronto Raptors, another Canadian team also formed in '96, with the 9th pick. There, McGrady unexpectedly encounters the coldest Toronto winter attitude of coach Darrell Walker. Under his leadership, T-Mac in his first season played an average of 18 minutes per game, scoring 7 points. During the next season, Walker will be retired, and Trace will then remember the first year and a half in the league as hell, in which he felt alone in Toronto. Butch Carter became the team's new coach, and before that, the Raptors in the '98 draft had picked McGrady's cousin, Vince Carter. Under the new coach, Trace began to play more, but continued to play often from the bench, and even claimed the title of the best sixth player in the league. With the arrival of Vince, the results of the team also improved, and batch of Cousins was about to become one of the most spectacular duets in the post-Jordan NBA. It's curious that the players themselves learned about their kinship already being teammates. It turned out accidentally that their grandmothers were cousins. In the '99 lockout season, the Raptors were so close to 50% winning, and the '99-2000 season, with a record of 45 wins and 37 losses, they made the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. In the same year, the brother received an invitation to participate in the dunk competition, and, as you remember, it was legendary. They both made it to the final of the contest, but even there, Trace was left behind by his more accomplished brother. Obviously, McGrady wasn't happy with this situation. He was sure that he was ready to become the leader of his own team that would bet on him. The Raptors even negotiated his exchange with Philadelphia. They were ready to give up the first-round pick for Larry Hughes, but they failed to agree. Of course, it would be interesting to look at the Iverson-McGrady connection, especially since Tracy fits perfectly into the concept that top defenders are gathered around answer, but he would be in the shadows there too. So, after being eliminated in the first round of the playoffs by New York, T-Mac became free and signed a 6-year, $67.5 million contract with the Orlando Magic. The Magic had lost Penny Hardaway the year before, and Shaquille had been shining in the California glory. The team needed a new bunch of stars, or even better, a trio. McGrady, according to their idea, was supposed to reach a new level near to the more experienced Grant Hill, and they planned to make Tim Duncan the foundation of an almost championship team. Plus, the team already had role players like Horace Grant, who had seen a lot in the 90s, and the best rookie of the previous season, Mike Miller. Of course, in Orlando, Tracy got the number of his idol Penny Hardaway, which he recently freed. The plan was good, they were acting according to it, but as usual, something went wrong. After long negotiations, Duncan decided to stay in San Antonio. Grant Hill only played 4 games in his first season in Orlando. T-Mac became the leader and the team's first chosen attack as he dreamed of. And from the very first season, the magic had begun. Tracy literally blossomed under the sun of his native Florida, immediately became one of the main stars of the league, made his first All-Star game at Star 5, was selected to the All-NBA Second Five, led the team to the playoffs, and signed contract with the Adidas. As you understand, he couldn't choose something else. At the end of the season, he was named as the most progressive player in the league, but Orlando busted out in the first round, losing to Ray Allen's Milwaukee Bucks. Grant Hill continued to be suffering with the injuries in the following season. For 4 years in Orlando, he would play only 47 games, but that's a completely different story. Without an older comrade, McGrady continued to dazzle in the regular season and crash out in early rounds of the playoffs. In 2001-2002 season, he continued to improve his performance. T-Mac already scored 26 points per game, received an invitation to the All-Star game for the second time, and was already in the first symbolic team in the end of the season. But this time around, the Magic were not able to defeat Barnes Davis' Charlotte Hornets in the first round. In the third season in Orlando, Tracy reached his individual peak. With just over 32 points per game, he became the youngest ever leading scorer of the season in the league history. In 2003, he was shining at the All-Star game. Again, made the top 5 in the NBA and also won gold at the Pan American Games as a part of the US team. Seemed like even Pistons were not able to defeat them, whom they faced in the first round this time. It started off great with the Magic leading 3-1, but it was the series in which Doc Rivers, in his trademark style, first lost such an advantage. Fans were talking about the curse of McGrady, who effortlessly, single-handedly dragged Orlando into the postseason, after which, to the sounds of fanfare, he was eliminated in the first round. In this background, he had a fight with Doc Rivers. This conflict and injuries to the bunch of Magic's first-team players were one of the reasons for the team's disgusting next season. T-Mac was completely without support, but this didn't stop him from taking the title of the NBA's top scorer for the second time in a row. He averaged 28 points per game, and on March 10, 2004 set a personal best in scoring with 62 points against Washington. However, Orlando finished the season 21-61 and finished last in the East, giving them the first pick in the upcoming draft, under which they selected, you guessed it, Dwight Howard. After a terrible season, Tracy McGrady demanded an exchange from the management of Orlando, threatening that he would be a free agent in the year. Thus, you and I were left without another star bunch with a great potential. In the summer of 2004, Tracy McGrady moved to the team that most basketball fans of my generation and younger remember him for, During a trade, along with Joan Howard, Tyronn Lue, and Rhys Gaines, he was sent to the Houston Rockets. The Magic got Steve Francis, Katina Mobley, and Kelvin Carter in return, and eventually regretted the deal as much as T-Mac himself regretted leaving Toronto. The powerful connection between McGrady and Yao Ming immediately made the Rockets one of the favorites of the Western Conference, but the next dynasty, again, remained on paper. This couple really looked amazing together, but more often they had to drag the team alone while the other star was in infirmary. In 2005, T-Mac injured his back, which would torment him for the rest of his career, and the knees and feet of 226cm Yao were already beginning to crumble under the weight of the loads. Naturally, injuries were reflected in the results of the team, which, believe it or not, could not overcome the first round of the playoffs. Despite these cursed and unfulfilled expectations, McGrady continued to impress with individual achievements and sometimes even performed small miracles. He first became the third youngest player in history to score 14,000 points and 4,000 career rebounds. In one of the most iconic finishes in NBA history, he pulled out victory for his team, scoring 13 points in the final 35 seconds of the game against 2005 season champions, the San Antonio Spurs. Until 2007, he didn't miss a single All-Star game, and 3 times as a Rockets player he got into the symbolic 5 at the end of the season. And in the same 2007, he became the face of NBA Live computer game. As a Houston leader in 2007-2008 season without injured Yao Ming, he helped the team to 22 straight wins. It's the 4th longest running in the history. Despite all of this, Houston only once, in 2009, managed to reach the second round of the playoffs. The irony of that past season is that McGrady himself missed it due to another injury, which made some fans wonder if he had a positive effect on the team's result. Since this season, 2009, T-Mac had become a chronically injured man. In addition to his back, has struggled to cope with shoulder and knee injuries. And these injuries not only prevented him from fully realizing his potential, but also reflected on the mood on the team. Time slipping through fingers and the inability to radically influence the situation did their job. McGrady was openly criticizing partners, coaches, organization, and was arriving completely untrained in the training camp. Returning from injuries, he immediately demanded the place at the start. After recovering from another injury, Trace had a confrontation with the head coach Rick Adelman over not enough playing time. The Rockets made the decision to separate ways with the capricious star, not to buy out the remainder of his $23 million contract, but to exchange him. Because of all of this, he would later gain the reputation as an aged prima donna. T-Mac was no longer able to shine with the naked talent, and the clubs were not eager to sign him as an experienced veteran. No one seemed to want a chronically injured narcissist, but this is the NBA. There are always desperate clubs ready to take risks for a big name. Remember Toronto failed deal with Philadelphia? So, T-Mac's career was still not without an exchange for Larry Hughes. On February 8, 2010, McGrady was traded to the Knicks in a 3-way deal involving Houston, New York, and Sacramento, which also included Old Larry. However, at the end of the season, the Knicks didn't make the playoffs. During the 2010 offseason, McGrady signed with the Detroit Pistons for a year. In the 2011 season, he scored 8 points, played about 23 minutes per game, and again didn't reach the playoffs. On December 7, 2011, McGrady agreed to a 1-year veteran minimum with Atlanta, for which he had already averaged just over 5 points in 16 minutes. October 2012 was marked by the headlines: Tracy McGrady goes to China. He signed a 1-year contract with the Qingdao Double Star. There, he showed off best of his old age, averaging 25 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 1.6 steals per game. Despite these statistics, Tracy's teams finished last in the championship with only 8 wins and 24 losses. On April 16, 2013, McGrady returned to the NBA. On the bench at San Antonio Spurs, with whom he finally managed to overcome the curse of first round, but not on his own. Having reached the NBA Finals, the 7-time All-Star, twice the league's most scoring player, retired at the age of 33. Since 2016, Tracy has been an analyst at ESPN. By the end of T-Mac's career, there were many reasons to criticize him. People called him a prima donna, lazy exploiting his natural talent, an egoist who complains to the press about the lack of qualified partners, Even McGrady's most loyal haters couldn't make out how a player of such talent could spend his career in such an irresponsible way. We have seen T-Mac's rising peak, witnessed his wandering the Atlantas, Detroits and New Yorks, watched his business trip to China, and watched his barely perceptible presence at the far end of the bench in San Antonio. But, despite the lack of championship titles and only 3 playoff series won in 16 years of his career, in 2017 he was included in the Basketball Hall of Fame. Of course, disputes immediately arose as to how much he deserved such an honor. On the one hand, he has 7 All-Stars games in a row. He is a 7-time member of the symbolic teams at the end of the season, twice the best scorer in the regular season, and has the title of the most progressive player. On the other hand, the lack of victories spiked with scandals, stupid decisions, and catastrophic bad luck. Even in his speech at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, T-Mac found a place to blame the fate and partners. Despite all my achievements, for most of my career, I was an outsider. I have never had a team that could claim the championship. I have lost many times in the playoffs. But now, it's not important. It's not about being good or even great. It's about being recognized. To be among the greats, no matter how many championship titles you have. Anyone can be a champion, but not everyone can be a member of the Hall of Fame. This recognition and honor will be my championship.